Tonight we're setting the woods on fire. You're my gal and I'm your feller. Dress up in your frock of yeller. I look swell, but you look sweller. Setting the woods on fire. We're taking all the honky. Hey, good looking. What you got cooking? How's about cooking something up with me? Hey, sweet baby, don't you think maybe we can find us a brand new recipe? I got a hot rod Ford and a $2 bill, and I know a spot right over the hill. There's soda pop.
1960.
And where?
Blewett.
In Nichols Hospital, would that be, or would you remember? Or you wouldn't remember specifically?
I was born at home.
You think you might have been born at home. Do you remember who the presiding doctor was?
A little before my time.
Yeah. What were your parents' names?
My parents?
Yes.
Braden, Blewett, and Annie.
And what was your mom's maiden name?
Watson.
Okay. And were there any other people in your family? You had a sister, I believe.
Sister Jean, yeah.
And is Jean younger than you?
Younger.
And Jean hasn't been well, and she's not able to be with us tonight. But, and Jean, some of you who may remember, she married Harry Joe.
Yeah.
And was also another Lakefield family.
Yeah.
Your grandparents, Joe, on your mother's side, the Watsons.
Yeah.
What was do you remember your grandfather Watson?
Joe.
Joe.
Joe Watson.
And his,
No.
your grandmother Watson, what was her maiden name?
Selena.
Selena Mason.
Selena Mason.
Mason. So that's how the Masons, the family in Lakefield, are related to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And how about on your dad's side? His father, your grandmother Blewett.
Johnny Blewett and Annie.
And what was Annie's maiden name? Do you remember? Was she a darling? I think she was a darling. She was to you anyhow.
Yes, she was, yeah. Especially to him.
Yeah. And as I recall, did your grandfather live in Lakefield? And your dad lived in Lakefield?
Yeah.
And you lived in Lakefield? Terry and Rick were raised in Lakefield? So you got at least 4 good generations of Lakefield.
Yeah.
How, and maybe further than that. Where did you first go to school, Joe? Where?
Lakefield. Public school.
The old public school that they tore down,
Yeah.
eh? You wouldn't have too far to walk, would you?
Just through the fence.
Joe was raised right adjoining to the public school.
I'm
Remember?
still there.
And the house is still there, yeah. Who lives there now?
Jack McCracken.
Jeff McCracken, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Who was your kindergarten teacher, do you remember?
Did you have a kindergarten teacher at that time?
No,
Maybe
I
not, at that time, 1960.
Perhaps
think I started in the entrance.
Until the first test. Yeah. I don't doubt you did, Joe. So you, when did you first, what were some of the games you played in public school?
Oh, we played. Well, we started lacrosse. It only lasted for one day. Tommy Chapman was a principal then. And he decided he would come out with us. And the lacrosse lasted until somebody hit him over the head.
So we didn't turn out a lot of lacrosse players.
Hockey players and ball players.
And then did you play Red Rover? Or, Red Line, anything like that when you were in public school? Ah, dear, that was a shame. When I went home, we played until the closer ripped right off us. Anyway. So then you went to high school, and those are the years that most of us remember quite well. Who was your principal then, do you remember?
Young Hardy.
Did you enjoy him?
Yeah, very nice.
You enjoyed him very much, eh? What were the good things about him that you liked?
Well, I don't know, he was a good teacher. And he also made the kids mind, if he could. He didn't fool around with anybody.
I see.
And he was sports-minded.
Yeah,
He loved sports.
He liked the sports, eh? Was he from Lakefield?
no. I don't know where he came in from.
I see.
Hugh Harvey, that was Hugh Harvey's fault.
Hugh and John's.
Yeah.
Would you call him your favorite teacher? Or were there others there that you liked?
No, he was my favorite high school teacher because I only went for years, so I didn't know.
Then he went to the Jones.
Joe, some people it takes them a lot longer. So I'm glad the way you picked up on it so quickly.
They got the role for one day.
What did you got out of school, and then what did you do?
I went to work in the West Block.
Yes.
In Peterborough, how-
Did you get that he went to the Grove as well?
oh, yeah, I understood that, yeah. Tell us about your career at the Grove, it wasn't quite as long as high school.
Well, that won't take you long, it's only for one day.
But, tell us a little bit about it. Did you got there in the old school yell, or what?
So they can hear you there.
Mackenzie, he was the guy that started, the head guy.
He's the headmaster.
And we used to play football and hockey against the Grove.
Uh-huh.
So we called him Mac Mackenzie. He came down, wanted to know if I could go to the Grove school. He said, if you come to the Grove, it won't cost you anything. And then I'll see that you go to university. So I went through the Grove and the university both in one day.
What didn't you like about the red and green? Or is it just, you wanted to be in Lakefield, did you?
Yeah, well, I had a walkway up there to go.
You just had to go through the fence here at
I go
Lakefield.
through the fence and everything. And also, I go into the Grove. They didn't start school till 2 weeks after we did Lakefield, so I got an extra 2 weeks holiday. In Ballville.
And best of friends.
Uh-huh.
Really,
Yeah.
best of friends.
Indeed, I know. Joe, when you went to high school, did they have a football team then?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Who were some of the fellows who played with you that were your age, do you remember?
The only one that I remember really was, well, with Charlie Tanner, Bob Nichols. I remember Bob one night we were playing down there, and the one day, Bob, he got the ball, and he was wrong. He had a good run. But the only trouble was he was running the wrong way. He wore his ankle, and everybody told him. He was going the wrong way.
Oh, yeah. And was he fast, Joe?
He wasn't fast enough to get back.
And I think I've seen pictures you had track teams in also, did you,
Yeah.
when you went to school?
Yeah.
So you had a pretty good sporting program. Did you have a high school hockey team?
Yeah.
I think we got
I like to go about every week.
So you got to know a lot of the Grove boys?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I met an old Grove boy, Mr. McRae, who believed he played against you. Do you remember him?
Bubbles.
Bubbles McRae?
Yeah.
And you played against him. They always seem to remember you. Were you a friendly chap? I think it was because you were such a fine hockey player.
I talked to him.
Where did you first start to play hockey here in Lakefield, Joe?
Well, we started around, well, PBH, no organized hockey or anything, eh?
In public school, did you start skating?
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And tell us about your dad, Braden, who was known as Chubby and was well known around the village. He loved the hockey game, didn't he?
Oh, yeah.
How long did he play?
What did you say, 40,
42,
42?
42 or 43.
44, I think.
Yeah.
44, in that area.
I remember I had the privilege of interviewing your dad way back years ago, and he was telling me he quit playing hockey. And then the train went out of here to go for the boys to go away play somewhere. And he said his retirement and at last was loaded up. He jumped out of the train, went away with them to play, and played another 6 to 8 years till he was 44.
Yeah.
So that interest and desire carried on. And then you had an uncle that was a fine hockey player too, I understand.
Harry.
Uncle Harry, yes. He played in Toronto, I believe, did he play for Toronto Pictures or something?
I don't actually know Neil who he played for.
But he was known to be a good hockey player.
Yeah.
Yes. And was the arena what we call the old arena on Colburn Street?
Yeah.
You didn't have too far to go to
Well,
it.
I had pretty close to everything.
Yeah. And who were some of the people that helped you when you first started to play the game of hockey down there? Coached you or worked with you?
Well, we were mostly on our own down there. We never actually had, anybody, coaches or anything.
A school team.
Yeah.
Have a school team, yes.
Well, we had Tommy Chaplin
Uh-huh.
in high school, in public school.
Okay, yeah. Mr. Chaplin was always interested in sports,
Yeah.
except he got turned off on it. He later became the postmaster, didn't he? Yeah. What else did you do when you were young lad in Lakefield? Did you ever go camping or anything of that nature?
Yeah, we used to go on long trips. We'd go to the park. Go to camp up over there.
I see. You'd be gone for a weekend or something. Yeah.
I'll come along.
Instead of my camping trips.
Well, things never change, because I can remember your son Terry, when he was growing up, he and Ronnie Dean and Ronnie Tinney would be over tenting over there. So maybe they were using yours too. Yeah. Did you ever tent over there, Rick?
No.
No? Did they have any movie theaters or any shows like that when you were a kid?
Yeah, down right next to, what did you say that hardware store?
Full hardware?
Pearl Harbor.
Oh, the old Leonard Hardware next
Yeah, there's
door.
that little shop next door.
Theater.
They had a theater there.
I see. And were they talking stroll?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Who would talk, the
I
spectators?
didn't know these people.
No, they had sound movies when you were a child, eh?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay, yeah. Because someone told me that there used to be a so-and-so played the piano in there.
Brucey Wanamaker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, what's that? Speaking of playing the piano, did you ever sing in a choir or anything? You used to love to sing and all that.
I only played the piano while you head across the fingers with a stick. Mrs. Grills was a teacher.
Miss Grills, Miss Grills.
Miss
Yeah,
Grills.
yeah, that's her nephew down there. He looks at that game too, he'd be hitting across the fingers.
I didn't have my music lessons.
Was that the first lesson or later on?
I had two.
Well, that's nice. You have a happy childhood in Lakefield?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. Who was your best friend when you were a child?
Well, I had my cousin Bob Lennox.
Oh, yeah, Bob Lennox, yeah.
And Harry, and Joe.
Oh, no.
Girls?
About Jake, your age?
Yeah, Bob was my age.
Did you chum with him quite a while? You played sports with him?
Yeah.
Where'd you play ball in those years? You played softball or
Yeah.
baseball?
Softball.
And where?
Over where the school is now.
Another short trip. Just go to that. Joe was raised up near the public school, and there was arena was right nearby, and the public school grounds were nearby, and the ball field where they played football and baseball was very nearby, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So that's why he didn't like walking away up the grove. Did you ever work part time when you were going to school, Joe?
Yeah. I worked for a while for Beecher Blake.
Oh yeah.
They run the grocery store.
Oh yeah.
And I taught young boys, and you know he wound up.
So you actually started off with playing umpire. So you were the first guy in the IGA. Okay, Joe. Everybody knows you as a. Did you do any swimming when you were a kid?
No, just the ordinary.
Yeah. I never ever. It was a big thing when I was a kid to be swim across the island. I never could do it, but I could throw a rock over there. Anyway, you'd be swimming over the island when you were a kid, didn't you?
Well, I never did swim over them like you do.
Yeah.
I felt safer on this side.
Me too. Just get down.
You saved the boy down there at the docks.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
A child was drowning, or?
Yeah, Freddie Mason.
Oh.
You remember when they used to park the scows along the dock down there?
Yes, I do.
I was down there, and I just got out of the house with the cold water said, "Don't you get wet." So I rode my bike down there, and first Payne was down there. And I just got down, and Bruce was standing there, and he said, "Freddie Mason just fell in." I said, "Where?" He said, "Underneath the scow." Why burst it, but I don't know. But anyway, I had a pair of those flannel pants on, soaks up all the water in the lake. And I go in, and I thought Freddie was just coming up for the last time.
Oh.
He hit his head, and I pulled him out. He wasn't bad, he went under, behind the wood piles they used to have for the oil end and that. And I never seen anybody take off and run home as quick as on the lake. And then I went home, and I got halfway down, getting wet.
Well,
So I couldn't win.
well, Joe, really, maybe you might have needed those pads for the weight. So Freddie, he lived a long time after that. Was he the fellow lived over on Oxford Street in later years?
You know, Freddie lived up behind us on Chippewa Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Joe, your dad was known as quite a canoeist, was he not?
Yeah.
He paddled? Yeah. There used to be a lot of retailers around here. Do you remember any of them?
I went to the mall.
Did you? You saw your dad race a lot of times?
He never lost a race in a single canoe.
Yeah. I've been told that. Now, you remember that. Chubby Braden Blewett never, ever lost a race in a single canoe, and I've been told that by a number of people. In fact, I got quite angry because somebody tried to tell me that Nakama beat him, but Nakama never beat him. Thanks, Nakama.
That's what they said in the Herald.
Yes.
Rifle in the Herald.
Well, we know what goes on then, anyway.
The biggest race I seen him in was at Juniper Island. There was a fellow up there by the name of Oxford. And he
Oxford?
Oxford.
Oxford.
And
Okay.
he put a big trophy on. but you had to win it 3 years in a row. Well, Dad had already won it 2 years. And the third year, this actually brought a fella down from Toronto Canoe Club. I still see him coming in and out window with the canoe and all the ribbons flying and everything. So anyway, the race started. Oxley lost his trophy. Dad beat this guy by 2 canoe lengths.
And he was a big hero for the Toronto Canoe Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and tell me the story. Your dad was getting up in years, and there was one of the last regattas in Lakefield, and you were down there, and Drake Joplin was the champion paddler all around here, and he was a good friend of yours and an athlete from Bridgeport, wasn't he? Tell me that story, Joe. What happened? You said something to your dad that kind of upset him.
Yeah. Well, there was 2 or 3 of us down along in front of the dock, and the single canoe race come on. And I just happened to say to Dad, you know, Dad, I don't think you were paddling half as fast as Drake Joplin is now. We stood there and talked, and I couldn't see him anyplace. The next thing I see him coming out in the canoe, going out to race. So anyway, he had to race.
Excuse me, Joe, where did he get the canoe?
He just found it along.
It wasn't his canoe or Drake's canoe or anything. Up he comes in the canoe. Okay.
And he beat Joplin by a canoe length or more, and he said, I could have beat him more. Well, he said, I'm afraid to pull too hard for the paddle would break.
Yeah.
And his arms, just like that chair, he couldn't put it in him.
They hadn't had it for so long.
Well, Chubby always had a husky arm on him right up to the day he passed away. But indeed, that was one of the fears when you were paddling, that the paddle would break. But that wasn't just a bit of humor. You had to baby it, or if you had your own paddle, I suppose you knew that it was tested and trusted and it wouldn't. But when you picked one up, and that's a really interesting story. So the other thing, your grandfather Johnny Blewett, he was I don't know if he played the piano or not, but he played the violin. Yeah. Violin, and they don't call it that now, but anyway, what he means is they call it a juice heart now, like tobacco juice, but anyhow, he used to play that. And where did he play, Joel? What type of events would he play at?
Where do you go to the dances?
Your grandpa?
No, he used to play it.
Where would he play it? The dances and that, yeah.
Yeah, I just got him around here.
Yeah. Incidentally, there's a descendant of Johnny Blewett out there, that gentleman in the blue blazer, Mr. Roger Wilson. Johnny Blewett was your great-grandfather?
Great-grandfather.
Great-great-grandfather. And Johnny was well known. We have to go back in time, and these people think we're awful wicked, evil people, but in those days, people were known as fighting men and respected for standing up when it came to do so. And what happened this time? Somebody's accused your grandfather, Johnny Blewett, of being afraid to tango with him.
Well, I can never remember grandfather fighting, but he was a big man. He must have been 6'4" and 250 pounds or more. And you all remember the river drive logs, and they had a camp in Absent. And somehow this big fellow in Absent, he was known as the best man around the community. And he happened to know my grandfather, and he told this fellow about it, and this fellow said, well, I'd like to meet him. He came down and told my grandfather that he'd like to meet him, so my grandfather thought for 2 days or so, and then he thought one day, well, I'll just go to Absey and meet this fellow. So he struck out through the woods and walked from Warsaw to Absey. He arrived there fairly late in the afternoon. He met this fellow, and it was just before dinner time up there. The fellow said, well, he said, they got to know one another. He called him by the first name. And he said, well, Johnny, he said, I think we got time to have a fight before. Of course, that's the least thing my grandfather taught him when he left. So they had the fight anyway. My grandfather beat him. And he looked at him and he said, well, Johnny, he said, I guess I'm going to bet my match. He said, it's a little late tonight, you better come in and have dinner. Well, he went in and had dinner with him and stayed all night. The next morning, he got up, walked back through the woods to Warsaw.
And
A long ways to Warsaw.
yeah, that was quite a walk, but that's the way it was then, Joel. That was a different world, thank goodness.
He would have gone to Grove School that year.
Didn't they put a stop sign in especially for your grandfather? Johnny Blewett, he used to drive a car, did he not, Joel?
They call it a car. An old star.
A star.
How many, there must be some people in here that remember when Bob Webster was a cop in Lakefield.
Connie does.
Oh, there's a guy, yeah.
Bob used to, grandfather had a shop at the corner of Charlotte and Strickland Street.
Chippewa. Chippewa, Strickland.
Chippewa and Strickland.
Yeah.
Bob used to patrol the main street, I'd say about 2 or 3 hours a day and 5 or 6 hours in the shop with my grandfather. He was up there one day and I talked to him. My grandfather said to him, you know, Bob, there's going to be an awful accident here. Bob said, what do you mean? Well, he said the people come down this Chippewa Street, never stop, right on to Strickland, they'll go have an accident someday. Well, Bob said, we'll have to try and fix that, you know, so. About a week later or something, we put a stop sign up in the corner. And of course, every time Bob came into the shop, my grandfather would drive him back down to the village. So we got in the car and come down to Strickland Street, my grandfather and my grandfather. Bob never said anything to him. We get down the street, he said to my grandfather, it's a good job I put that stop sign on, Johnny. My grandfather said, what stop sign? Well, he said, there's a big one right out there, you go back up, you look and you'll see it. So my grandfather looked, the stop sign was there, but whether he stopped going on to Strickland Street or not, I don't know. Yeah, I was coming up one time when he had this old star car. We came through by the mill, across the road. We got across the road and I grabbed the steering wheel and gave it started to jerk like that. My grandfather looked at me and he said, what the hell are you doing? Oh, I said, you know, Grandpa, this place where you're going, that's for people to walk on. There's the road.
In later years, your grandpa developed some gangrene, as unfortunately, and he had to have his leg off, did he not?
Yeah.
Where did that happen? Could you tell us about that? I believe your dad went into the hospital.
Well, Dad was going out on the causeway. He did photos, and he made it for the causeway up there. And the time came when my grandfather was to have a leg off. And in those days, of course, there was no, they didn't freeze your leg. It packed like ice and hadn't frozen. And just when they were supposed to take the leg off, my grandfather refused. Oh, wait. So they had to come out to the causeway and get Dad to go in. So Dad went in, and after talking to him for a while, he decided, well, I'll have a leg off. So they had that off, and then they ended up in a nursing home down on, what was the name of it? Belton.
That's wrong. That's wrong. Yeah, that's right.
And that's about all the questions I have. But one thing I'd like to have before we close here, I'd like to have Braden and Joey come up here and stand so they can get in this video with Grandpa here. And they maybe have a couple of questions that they got to ask you that will throw you for a loop.
So Neil, I noticed that we learned a lot about Joe's family, but there was one thing that you didn't mention, and he was really very instrumental in starting the Lakefield minor hockey, and he did a fabulous job.
Well, yeah, thank you. And I want to get at that. Braden and Joey, would you come up now? But thank you, Sylvie, because I wanted him to tell us about that, because he has a lot of good memories about that. I just want you to come up for a moment and get in this video, Joey, right up here if you find. Because I think it'd be a shame 85 years from now that we haven't got, and Tracy, you too, please, come on. You're not coming, Tracy? Ah, shame. This is Braden Blewett. I'll get out of here. Grandpa's going to be disappointed, Tracy. Yeah, thanks, Todd. Okay, thanks, Todd. Got any questions for Gramps? He's got an answer? Okay. Joe?
To the Hall of Fame, you should mention that.
Yeah. Joe's a member of the Peterborough Sports Hall of Fame for his prowess as an athlete. And Joe, you were telling me the other day, you coached some kids. How many children that you coached went on to have a hockey scholarship in the United States?
6.
6.
6 Lakefield kids.
Yeah. Did you ever coach me? I was uncoachable.
I coached you once.
Listen, well, make that 7.
You know, when the other team's short-handed,
Yeah.
normally you put an extra man. We were playing this game up there. They put the extra man on so they get a goal. Took the goal minder out. Where'd you go?
I left him at home, I don't.
Back to play goal.
That was old time. We were all tainted then. Okay, Joe coached some local children here. His son Terry had a hockey scholarship at University of New Hampshire. Normie Bean had a hockey scholarship at Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute, RPI.
Well, practice.
Rob Magnus was at RPI.
Rob McCarthy.
Rob McCarthy, he went to
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire, and then the,
Bill
Bill Stabler went to RPI, and another, Nichols, Larry Nichols went to,
I don't know where
I
that
don't know.
No, he went to University of New Hampshire.
So, Joe, but the other thing is, all the kids come home, and they all want to keep in touch with Joe. They just love him as a person and love him as a coach, and I can't figure that out. I was up to his place the other day, and a chap by the name of Perry Chittick had written a nice card, and it said, and Perry Chittick grew up in Lakefield, and his father was reeve here for a while, and Perry now is a gifted teacher in Kitchener, I believe. And he said, Joe, I want you to know you're the best coach I've ever had in hockey. He said, you always make things so nice and so easy. And he said, I coach a lot of children now, and he said, I try to do exactly the way you did it. And they talk about the generation gap and how the new breed of coaches are coming on and so on. Well, the old breed wasn't too bad, is it? Any questions from the audience, please? I just about ran the gamut here.
Doug, you haven't talked much about hockey. About his hockey career, have you talked much where he played, what?
Yeah, your hockey career.
No, yeah, well, so you left Lakefield and you went to work in the West Box show.
Yeah, that's something I want to mention. I only worked there for 40 years.
40 more some years.
And in the 40 years I was there, I worked in Peterborough at the corner of Mark Street. When I went there was 3 men, counting myself, and 2 girls. I can't go lost track of the girls. All but one I brought her home. We used to go out the odd time, over and have a coffee or something. Of course, we weren't making that much money. I think we were making about 10 cents an hour when I first started there. And so after going together for about 2 or 3 years, I just kind of forgot when you asked me to marry you. But anyway, that was on the 28th of June.
Nice. You don't forgot the date?
Well, he was ready a day earlier.
Anyway, on the 28th and a half of June, will be 55 years. For the happiest days.
Your wife, I'm sorry that I didn't ask you that. I had it written down here, but I got Ann Libby. Your wife was from, she wasn't from Lakefield, but...
Well, I don't think too many people heard tell of the place. It's only a small town this side of Lindsay. It's all about O'Meany.
And were you married in O'Meany?
Right.
Uh-huh. And your maiden name was Brooks?
Right, we came to Lakefield. We lived here ever since.
Dorothy Brooks, okay.
Yeah.
Well, I found an interesting story, Joe. Maybe you'd share with the people. You built your house, didn't you?
Yeah.
And did you work on it yourself, you and your dad? Or?
I didn't build Sam White.
Oh, Sam White, oh yeah.
Remember Sam built the last house here.
He was a famous old carpenter in
Carter
Lakefield.
lived in Lakefield. He built, it was the last house he built.
And where'd you get the lumber?
Well, the wood was hard to look at. I got it out all over the bottom of Lossick Lake. You know, there used to be Peterborough lumber, Carew, Camp, and they told me that I couldn't pull these logs. But Peterborough lumber, and Carew would come along and they'd find it. So Roger, remember Max Wilson and Carl. Max had a trucking business. So all summer I pulled logs.
And Joe, may I interrupt? These logs would have sunk in the river drives years ago. They would have sunk down and they sunk to the bottom. So they had laid there maybe for 100 years. And Joe and his dad came along, okay, excuse me, and they said, well, we'll pull them up and use them.
Yeah, and I pulled them up. Max, he trucked them all down to McManus Mill. And I had them all sawed up. I had 2 hardwood oak logs. They were the hardest to pull up. They didn't want to come at all, but I got them. And after the lumber, it took probably a year for the lumber to dry out. Had it piled up. I had enough 2x8s, 2x4s, and rough sheeting to build the whole house.
Hardwood floors.
Well, that's what the hardwood logs were.
And it's still pretty solid, Joe. And another thing that Joe told me is that they wondered how they were building them up. But his father, being quite ingenious, had a big screw thing that he would screw down into the log, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And then it would fold up easily from that point on. So there's a way of doing everything. And our older generation knew the way and did it for themselves. I thought that was a great story about how you built your house.
You pull them up and tie 2 of them on the side of the boat and bring them over to Burley and sink them in the water again. Because you couldn't leave them on the shore, eh?
Uh-huh. Yeah. Elmer Graham, you had a question, please.
I just want to ask if Joe has any stories about his duck hunting.
Oh, what is duck hunting?
Very good. during the deer hunt, that was their party was talking about. This one we had any stories.
Well, I never had any real stories about Delmer outside the fact that I did a lot with Dad. And that's about it as far as hunting goes.
You duck hunt with, you mean duck hunting?
Yeah.
You duck hunt with Tom, and everybody did, and who else?
You duck hunted a lot of, with Jerry Stabler, didn't you? For a while?
Yeah.
And,
Up neighbors,
Yeah.
very good.
oh yeah, uh-huh. And, anyone else have anything they'd like to ask of Joe? We never got how you got out of Lakefield. You went and played an awful lot of hockey. You played hockey with a few NHL hockey players, and you played on Ontario championship teams. You haven't even started to tell us. Where did you get out of Lakefield? Like, that's a big step to get out of this town and go play hockey. Where did you,
That was before you and me, though.
you played for the Armenian Blackhawks?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I just went to Peterborough, played junior and senior in Peterborough. Then I played for the Kingston Army. That's where I met
Red Hamilton.
Red Hamill, Ronnie Nelson, Red Tilson. That's when the big incident with Turk Road came up, which was true. They were holding all these people in the camps too long for their athletic ability. I mean, they keep them there to play ball, they keep them there to play hockey. So it came up time for Rhoda, and he went to a camp. I think he went on his own. He didn't wait for them to send him. We played one night in St. Catharines. The next night we played back in Kingston. The next day we're all on the transfer camp to Oregon. That's when they woke that thing up about holding people to play hockey as well.
Have we any other questions from the floor? Yes, Don?
I don't have a question, but I have a point of interest. Dorothy's from O'Leary, but Joe's grandmother lived in O'Leary in 1880 as well. Selina Mason and Ida Mason, my grandmother, they all lived in O'Leary in 1880.
Oh.
So, destiny. Amazing.
George?
It's a village.
Excuse me, everybody talking about Joe and his ball and his hockey and everything. You know, into this, years a very good curler at the Lakefield Curling Club. I don't know if Joe's any stories to tell about curling or not.
Nothing only George, I knew which way to throw the rock. Half the time I wasn't getting there, when I did, it was wrong. If you say I had a lot of fun at curling club. Yeah.
Well, I noticed,
Golfed after that, too.
I have a newspaper there that Don Yale gave to me. And it's very interesting because Joe Blewett graduated in June the 25th, 1926, and he went from junior second to senior first or something. And must be quite a student, Joe. And it lists all the names of your fellow classmen. And in the same paper, believe it or not, it says that Mr. and Mrs. Johnny Blewett have left the village and gone to Burley Falls for the summer. And tell them, how many generations ran the bait shop up there?
3.
3.
Well, that's when my grandfather lived in Warsaw. He moved to run the bait shop in Burley Falls. And he had somebody driving to the private land. At that time, there was no such a thing as a motorboat. And he rode my grandfather and the 3 boys from the private landing over to Burley. Dropped them off, rolled back again, and picked up the stuff he had over there, rolled back to Burley again. So that was 2 trips he rode from the private landing to Burley in one day.
How many miles would that be?
I'd say it was a good 7 miles one way.
7 miles. Wow.
That's about it. That's about it.
You know, that was, they didn't think anything of it.
That's about as long as where he walked through the woods to actually.
Yeah.
I'd like to have any more questions. It's gonna be quiet from then on.
So did you play for the Peach or Eagles in Peterborough? Did you play for the Peach or Eagles in Peterborough?
Beach.
The Peach, yeah.
Yeah. No, the Eagles were run by the Legion. They called them the Legion, didn't they? The Legion, yeah.
Yeah.
You played with Honey Tompkins?
Yeah.
And who else?
Oh, you played with Bun Kingdon and Argyle?
Argyle.
Yeah, Les Burton? Yeah. Red Creighton? Mick McGee?
Donnie Crow,
Ray Harding?
Ray Harding.
Yeah. All really good friends of yours over a long time.
Yeah.
Joe has so many friends that he's had so many happy associations with in sports and life, and I don't know why they take to you, Joe.
Well, that's when he quit hockey, then he decided to.
No, I didn't quit hockey. No, I quit hockey. The last team I played with was Young's Point.
Right.
Yeah.
And I made more money there I'm not afraid to tell you, I got $5 for home game and $10 going on the way.
But Joe, I gotta tell you a story, that very year, and I think that was in 1953, you were playing for Young's Point and in the Big Money, and that was a league down, and he could play in that, and he could just play laughing and starring, and everybody come to see Joe, and he was very, very good, and he was up in years. And our other team, Lakefield, was in the playoffs against Port Hope, and we came to Joe and said, well, you help us out. I didn't, I was just a kid, I was 17 then. They said, yeah, he would. He comes and he plays with us. He gets kicked out of the East Peterborough League with Jimmy Jones, who was the manager of Young's Point, never spoke to him. It was bad for him for years. But he was, I think in that year, 1960, he was 36, 37, and he hadn't played good hockey all year. And we played Port Hope in the playoffs, and we went 5 games. And he was the best player on the ice every game.
But I never got my $5 or $10.
That's all for me. Anyone else, any questions?
No.
Yeah. John.
There's a high school picture, you're in it, Mr. Harvey. Hugh Barrett, do you remember Hugh Barrett?
Yeah, yeah.
He's pretty good in sports?
Well, I never seen him play any sports, John, but
Oh.
he coaches one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought maybe we were going to get an apology for the rap on the knuckles.
Oh, no,
A family apology about what
that's a national institution.
Yes, Rick.
I'd just like to mention that when you're talking about my grandfather and his family, I can remember when I was a young lad, I wasn't maybe 10 years old, and we're up at the cottage, and Mom and I were sitting out in the old dining area, and my grandfather was telling me about how he used to paddle, and he said you do a handstand on the gunnels, flip the boat over, and climb back in again. And I said, yeah, right. Mom and I were sitting there, and she says, what's your grandfather?